Hello. Hi, everyone. Just waiting for people to join us. We're live here from Learn How Canada. Hi. Hi, Jasmine NK. Hi, Ademola. Thank you for joining. Hi, Sweet Perry Real Official. We'll just wait for more people to join us because we're just right at 1:30 here. So just confirm if you can hear me or if there's any sound issues, please let me know because I want to definitely make sure that this live is one where everyone can hear because that's why you're here, to get some information. I'm Lola. I'm an immigration consultant here at Learn How Immigration Consulting. Awesome. Thanks for confirming, Jasmine. Hello, Yinxie. You can hear? Awesome. So this is my first time going live, so I'm trying to see here if we can pin a comment. Okay. Wait for more people to join. Just want to see if I can pin that comment. Hello, Mr. Ayala. Hello, thank you for joining. Okay, so I'm just trying to pin this comment here. Okay, so perhaps you can't pin comments anymore. That's okay. We all know why we're here. We're here to learn about the healthcare and caregiver pathway, and also the two pathways, the health talent pathway and the agriculture talent pathway that Saskatchewan also launched recently. So we don't want people to miss this information. So we will wait probably till about 5 more minutes or here or there, and we will be saving the live as well. So if it's something that where you need to go in and out of the live, because I understand it's a Saturday and life is happening for everyone. So if you do need to go in and out of the live, you'll be able to rewatch the live as well on our page. So that will be saved. So we'll just wait some time here and see. Thank you for joining. Thank you all. Okay. Hi everyone. Feel free to drop in, what area, what you're interested in, maybe your profession, what you're interested in learning about the pathway. There's also a question option to leave questions here. So you can also put that in there. We'll try. I'll try to keep an eye on that for any questions that come through. It will be an informal. While it'll be it is an informal platform for us to be able to have a dynamic conversation and throw in your questions and here and there. I will start off by talking about the pathways in general. Talking about the pathway in general. So, just waiting here. We'll wait for We'll wait for just a couple more minutes here, and then we'll kick off. Sweet Prayer Real Official said that you are interested in caregiver. That's awesome, because that's why we're here. We're here to give information. I'm here to give information about caregiver pathways and also healthcare professionals. So if you're like a nurse, a doctor, a dentist, pharmacists, dietitians, nutritionists, just a varied field of healthcare professional, then we'll definitely go ahead and give that information. We're having questions about the PR in Canada after studying. Yeah. Permanent residence in Canada after. Please let us know the condition of permanent residence in Canada after studying. We'll definitely have some time to answer questions like that once we're done with the live. Once we're done with the giving the information about caregiver. But yeah, I know that's a budding question right now. People are wondering about studying and permanent residency. And I think we put out a video the other day talking about this. And one thing I always tell people is that if your goal is permanent residency, always try to go to the permanent residency route rather than coming in as studying where you're now on a temporary resident visa. And then they're making different changes when it comes to, as we can see, this year has been one of the most, I guess, of course, there have been changes over decades of immigration, but this year has had quite a lot of changes. The Canadian government is reviewing a lot of their policies when it comes to immigration. And so that's really affecting people who are here as students or aspiring to come in as a student. And so that's why I always tell people, if your goal is PR, then then you definitely need to look for a PR route, try the PR route rather than coming in as a student. Another question someone's already giving here is, please, what are the criteria to apply for a caregiver from UK? So it's not really about where you're applying from. The caregiver route has different eligibility requirements, but it's not really about where you're applying from. And I will be going over what those requirements are as we proceed in the live. So it's really about, your experience, and it's about your the pathway in Canada. So which pathway you're applying for in Canada rather than what country you're coming from. And then Mr. Ayala is asking again, what area of caregiver is most needed? It really varies. It's caregiver for the elderly, for live-in caregiver, home support, persons with disabilities, just any kind of different types of support worker roles is what's needed. Nurse aides, those kind of roles are what's needed in Canada right now. You're welcome, Mama Princess. Okay. Now I have are people requesting to join the live, like be part of the live, or maybe we can have that happen eventually. But at this time, we just want to start with, yeah, there's a lot of live-in caregiver. I think that's really because that was the pathway that was really very popular. Like, they have options for people who want to do live-in caregiving, and then they also have a PR route for that. They were having one. Right now, the programs are closed, so that's why everyone's kind of waiting for when they're going to open those programs. But they're no longer taking applications for those programs at this time. But they've announced the launch of a new pilot, right? So that's what it is. So, and I'll tell you more about the pilots in a bit here. So, I think we'll start now. I don't know if can anyone indicate if they were in the webinar? Were you in the webinar that we did sometime back? I believe it was around June, if I'm not mistaken. It's on our YouTube page as well. But if you were in the webinar, can you just indicate by putting, webinar, or yes, I was in the webinar. If you can indicate that in a comment so I can know. And it'll give me an idea of how many people were there, because we'll go over some of the information we went over there. If you were not in the webinar, please visit our Instagram page. Just go Learn How Immigration Consulting. Visit our YouTube page, and you can actually watch the webinar that we did on the caregiver pathway and healthcare professional pathways. So if you can indicate there, you can watch it there, but I will still be going over similar information here today. So, okay. So if, first of all, I've been, we've been having an informal chat, but I'll just go ahead and start with, introducing myself again for anyone who did not get a chance to meet me or hear my introduction. I'm Lola. I am an licensed immigration consultant here in Canada. So what that means is that I do have the required designation to represent you as an immigration consultant here in Canada. So I'm being, held accountable by CICC, which is our college that is also now even regulated through the government as well. So, generally, if you do want to work with an immigration consultant, you should make sure that they are licensed to practice as an immigration consultant. So we went to school for this, and we passed our necessary license exams, and we regularly report back report back on our activities to the college as well. You can actually find information, like we have a actual license number, and that's also on our any communications we have on our website, even on our Instagram page. It has the immigration consultant's license number. And so that's why I'm able to, give this information to you today under that regulation and under that licensing as well. So I have a background in immigration consulting and also an HR professional as well. And here I'm, through Learn How Canada, we go ahead and make sure that we're providing you with accurate information and really doing a good job to make sure that we're not giving you false hope if you are not eligible for any of the programs. So we regularly review your background. That's what our consulting usually requires. Review your background, review your education to be able to know, do you have a pathway that could allow you to move to Canada? And what are your goals in moving to Canada? I always say, what are your goals? What is the end goal of you moving to Canada? For those of you who your end goal is permanent residency, you're in the right place today. And if you have a caregiver or healthcare professional background, you're in the right place here today. So one thing about Canada is, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about different pathways. The permanent residency pathway, especially under the economic immigration pathway, the idea is that you have the skill set that they need to meet labor demands here in Canada. And so because of that, they're saying, we want you to be able to move to Canada and under your intended occupation, to move here and to live here and work and contribute to the Canadian labor market. And so that's the key thing about that. So if that's your intention, this is the pathway for you. And I don't want to digress here, but we're seeing a lot of changes with the study permit and what they're allowing, because under that program, under the study temporary residency and the study permit, the idea is that your intention is to come here to study, to improve your education, and to take advantage of Canada's robust educational system, which is why Canada is justified in putting requirements and saying, hey, people are moving here as a student, but their intention is to work. It doesn't meet your the intention is not aligning, right? Which is why people come here when they come, which is why you see that they're doing things like saying, your spouse can't come with you under a work permit that, based on depending on the program that you're coming under. That's why we're seeing things like that happen, because they're saying that means your intention isn't to study, it's to work. And if it's to work, then you should be applying for a work permit and getting an employer to work. Or you should be looking for a way that you can come here through PR, because the PR route is about living and working. And so that's why I'm very, like I said in the beginning of this, I'm a huge advocate of people. If your intention is to work and live in Canada, look for the profession that will allow you to get your permanent residency stay here in Canada. So, and what does that look like? What are some programs that looks like? Well, we've got the Express Entry program. So under Express Entry, there are different healthcare professions that are allowed for permanent residency. Right now, Canada is doing what we call targeted draws, and what they're doing with those target occupational draws. So the different categories, they're allowing people who might have experience in what what in America they usually call like STEM programs. So things like people that have experience with technology, people that have experience with healthcare, agriculture, even French is a category. So they're really, and even like transport, they're really they're really trying to get people with those specific skill set. One of them being healthcare, right? So you will see sometimes they will have healthcare category for healthcare. Recently they had French, people that spoke French as well. But sometimes you see the healthcare one as well. And the healthcare one, there is there's the nurse aide. There's a nurse aide occupation that's allowed to that if you meet the requirements, that you could get an invitation to apply for permanent residency. Now, there's a lot of information and eligibility requirements required here, and I don't want to cover too much on the nitty-gritty of that specifically, just because of time, and we want to quickly get to all the caregiver program options and healthcare programs. But just know that there is a pathway for that, for if you through the healthcare category draw that Express Entry runs as well. Okay. As well, one other thing that is you need to keep in mind that Express Entry is a point-based system. Now, a lot of people with the point-based system for Express Entry, we hear people say, I've been in the pool for a long time and I'm not meeting and I'm not able to, and I'm not able to, I've not gotten called for my invitation to apply for permanent residency. That's because there is a cutoff mark, right? There's a cutoff mark, and depending on your age, your years of occupation, years of work experience, if you have Canadian education, if you have work experience in Canada, if you have a family member in Canada, if what you score in your English test, English language. Yeah, I know, the dreaded IELTS. That is a big way that people can get more points, or sometimes it doesn't give them enough points. Those are some of the things that, really can affect your score when it comes to Express Entry. So it's a really big challenge that people do face. I will say that some people, they go ahead and score. There's like a calculation where you can calculate it through the government. They have it on their website, and you can get like your general score, and if you're eligible to even apply through Express Entry for any of the PR programs. And when people calculate it themselves, that sometimes I've seen people who think that they have less scores, they have a certain score, but they didn't put in the right, they didn't answer the question accurately. And sometimes they think they have more and they didn't answer, and it could be that it's an incorrect score. So that's one thing that we do at Learn How Canada. We help you and assess your profile, because everybody's profile is different. So we go ahead and assess your profile to check if you might have the score that would be able to give you a chance to increase your score even more than what you think it would be. So please go ahead and, reach out to us if you've never had anyone do that for you, or if you're not sure and you've done it yourself and you're like, I'm not sure that this is the right score. We'd be happy to do that for you at Learn How Canada as well. So for Express Entry for healthcare professionals, really, there's different requirements that's required, and you want to make sure that you meet the occupation the occupation requirements as well. That's something we can also do for you, but the occupation requirements is really about, do you have the education that's needed, and do you have the education, and do you have the years of work experience? Now, it depends on the occupation for the healthcare professionals. Like, as you know, not all healthcare professionals have the same education requirements or work experience. But I know a lot of people here are interested in, in the caregiver option. And what we see in the caregiver option is, you do need at least a high school, at least in the program that they're proposing to launch. Like I said, the pilot programs are currently closed under, that were open previously. They're currently closed, but in what they're proposing, in the one that they made an announcement about in June, is that for you to have, at least a high school education. That's one thing that they're proposing for that. So if you have a high school education, you're in good hands when it comes for the caregiver option. At least 1 year of experience as well. That's one thing that they're looking for you to have as a caregiver as well. And as well, if you were looking for any other professions, you do need to go to the National Occupation Classification, and you need to check the specific profession that you're looking at. If you've not done that before, it's something that we can also help you with, but you could also do it yourself. If you go to National Occupation Classification, make sure you're looking at the 2021 year classification because it was changed in 2021. So make sure that you're looking at that as well, so that you make sure that you're getting the right information for that, for you to know that you meet those requirements. So another way that one that is recently came out for healthcare and professionals is through Saskatchewan. So it's through the provincial nominee program, right? Saskatchewan just recently launched theirs as well. And the Saskatchewan program is actually does require you to have a job offer, right? So you do need to have a job offer from a job in the healthcare sector here, and it must be based here in Saskatchewan. Another thing that they're looking for is an English requirement. You do need to have a CLB 5 for that. So they're looking for people that have a CLB 5 English, and it doesn't have to be just English. It could be English or French as well. So you need, and this is, and just to go back, this is for the non-express entry route. So Saskatchewan Healthcare has two ways you can apply for as a healthcare or a caregiver, as you can apply for permanent residency. So, and this is under their PNP program, Provision Nominee Program. And to go back, what it does is that it gives you the non-express entry route. You're applying straight for PR, and then the express entry route is what would give you 600 points. Remember, I talked about how for express entry you get a certain amount of points. One thing that people get if they get a provincial nomination is 600 points. 600 points is a big deal because for a lot of people, they stay in that, especially as you get older, they might be in that like 300, mid 300, maybe low 400s, which years ago was great to have low 400s. Like it wasn't a bad score. Like you could get called for permanent residency with that. But now the scores are just not, they're not going that low at the moment. So that's why people like to go through the provincial nominee program. With the provincial nominee program, you get the 600 points. So like I said, there are two routes, which is the non-express route. This is now back to Saskatchewan Healthcare. It's called the Health Talent Pathway. So there are two routes, non-express entry and also the express entry route. So the non-express entry, you need the CLB 5 for English or French. You need full-time of work experience as well. If you're in Saskatchewan, it must be at least 6 months of full-time work experience. And if it's with your current employer, you need what we call a job approval letter. That's called short for JAL. So the job approval letter requires the employer to get that through the Saskatchewan government, immigration government sector in Saskatchewan. You also need 1 year of work experience within the last 5 years. So 1 year of work experience within the last 5 years. And this is for any healthcare professional, by the way, all these requirements that I'm just saying. So including caregiver as well. And I'll list the occupations in a bit, but I have a list here. I'll list all the occupations in a bit. So 1 year of experience within the last 5 years. And in licensing, if it needs to be licensing, you need to be able to meet the eligibility for licensing. Now, this is the part for healthcare professionals that's crucial. If let's say you want to come here as a pharmacist, or you want to come here as a medical doctor or physician, you need to make sure you need to go to the licensing board or the college and speak to them to see what what their requirements are, and if you at least meet the minimum of that. Then you also need to meet the education requirement for things like health caregiver. It's high school, just a high school grade, a high school diploma pretty much, or a secondary school. That's really what it is. I know that I've heard people say, ask for, in the UK, there's certain licensing and certifications for caregiver and for support worker. In here in Canada, it's not there for the immigration. Like, you just need that high school degree. However, the key thing is you do need a job offer, and the job that you're applying for, they might require certain licensing. They might say you need to have your first aid. You need to have, food and handling. The job that you're applying for might have their own requirements and certification. So you need to, that's kind of the caveat there, right? So making sure that whatever job you're applying for, you're looking at what their requirements, even though immigration might not require that, right? You also have to have the intent to work and live in Saskatchewan. So back to the eligibility for Saskatchewan healthcare program. So the idea is that you're working in Saskatchewan. If let's say you have family elsewhere and you somehow say, you cut here and you're going to move to Manitoba, you don't meet that. That means you don't have the intention to move to Saskatchewan, basically. So, and also you can't be a refugee claimant. So you cannot be a refugee claimant to apply for this non-express entry route. Now for the express entry route, now this requires you to have the express entry profile. So that means you have to meet the eligibility of the express entry. So what does that mean? If you remember the non-express entry route, you just needed a CLB 5. With this one, it means you need a CLB 7. So you need to have at least a CLB 7 in your score for your language score. So that's a bit higher. And now this is a total of CLB 7. It doesn't have to be like 7 in each band for it. You also need a job offer again in Saskatchewan. So back to that job offer again, right? Even the program that they're like the new caregiver route that pilot that's coming out, that they've said you're going to get PR on arrival, that also needs a job. You also need a job offer for that. So if you're a caregiver and you're looking to move to Canada, you need to start networking and looking for job opportunities, because that's the running theme with the program, that you need at least a job offer, whether it's live-in or from a or from a health institution, because now you can get it from a health institution. That's what they're saying the program will be like. And I'm talking about the federal program here. And so back to Saskatchewan pathway for the express entry route, you also need to have 1 year of work experience in the past 5 years as well. And then you also need to be eligible for licensing in Saskatchewan once again. And then you also need to not be a refugee claimant, and you need to have that intent to work in Saskatchewan, basically. So some of them I'm going to list it off here, but some of the occupations that are required that do meet this health talent pathway here in Saskatchewan includes so if you're a manager in healthcare, so you don't have to even be a doctor if you're a manager in healthcare. So sometimes some places are looking for, someone that has that public health experience to lead their healthcare, whether it's like a facility. Look for those kind of jobs. This is an opportunity here. You have to, specialists in clinical and laboratory medicine, specialists in surgery, general practitioners. So, family physicians, vets, dentists, optometrists, audiologists, psychologists, pharmacists, dietitians, chiropractors, physiotherapists, nursing coordinators and supervisors. So if you're someone who has, management experience as a nurse as well, you can look for those kind of jobs. Registered nurses, opticians, paramedical occupations, even dental hygienists, medical lab technologists, sonographers, pharmacy technicians, massage therapists, even other practitioners of natural healing as well, dental assistants, and then pharmacy technical assistants, and then the key ones for caregivers. So these are the NOC. And if you are a caregiver, I want you to put this down for an NOC code. Put this down. This is the NOC code you need, which is the occupation that you would qualify if you're a caregiver. And let me reword that. Check these NOC codes, because I don't know your full occupation experience, so you might not qualify. Check these NOC codes, because most caregivers fall under this. NOC 44101. And so so 44101, and I'm going to put this 101. Just put NOC 44101. And also, sometimes the job responsibilities of nurse aides also fall in line with people that have caregiver experience. And that's NOC 33102. So put that down as well. And I'm putting these NOC codes because I know that most people here are interested in the caregiver opportunity. So that's one thing that you could put also as well. So you should just keep that in mind when you're doing your, when you're looking for whether you meet any of these requirements. And just check that. What you would do then is check the, when you put that in, and I said, make sure you're looking at the 2021 occupation. When you do put that in, you can then check the job requirements. What are the job responsibilities? If you meet at least 70 to 80% of it, it doesn't have to be word for word, but in general, if you meet that, then you're actually going to be it means at least you qualify when it comes to responsibility. Then you can check the education. Okay, do you have the education that's needed? Then you can check, and sometimes you'll say is required. Sometimes say may be required. And that's why I'm encouraging you guys to book a consultation, because these are things that we can look at for you, and you can, and I'll show you exactly why it's okay. This means that you have to have it. It's required, may be required. So those are some of the things that you should look out for when you're reviewing those NOC codes to see if you have those requirements as well. So we'll just pause to see if there are any questions that we can answer here before we proceed. I think there was, can you employ for employer or job opening for job opening? That if you can clarify your question on what Princess about, can you employ for employer or opening for job opportunities? If you can just clarify that question. Annie Dixie is saying, what is the job situation and requirements for someone applying for PR? Are you talking about like the lay of the land, like what's like just like facts, or more about just like what are we seeing? I'm guessing you're saying what are we seeing and what are the trends right now. And actually, yeah, if you can just clarify that. I think you're asking what is the job situation and requirements, job situation. So I mean, you just apply for a job. Now, some companies, I think if I can guess what you're trying to say here, some companies require that you have PR. They're like, you know what, we don't want to get, like, we just want someone that has permanent residency. Some companies say we want someone that has work permit or at least has the eligibility to apply. So if they're saying you have to have the ability to apply, I mean, rather you have the eligibility to work in Canada. That's what I meant. If you're saying you have the eligibility to work in Canada, then that means they want you to have a work permit. They want you to have the PR. They're not willing to give you an LMIA, which is what I'm going to discuss in a bit. So an LMIA is a labor market impact assessment, which says that we did not find anybody here in Canada that has the experience that this person has and could not, and we're not able to fill this job. So we need someone else to fill this job. We need to have someone else who is a foreign worker who we now want to sponsor to be able to work here in Canada. And we were giving them an LMIA, and that person uses that LMIA to apply for a work permit. So that's one thing that is very common where employers might go that route. And that's where the challenge can be. So it's either you have the necessary, I would say the necessary documentation to work here in Canada without the employer helping you, or the employer is like, you don't have it, but you have the skills, and so we can support you here to work here in Canada. So that's one thing. So when will the new, okay, let's see here. When will the new, if you can just clarify, Princess, did you get a chance to clarify? No. Okay, we have a question actually in here. When will same question. When will the new caregiver route be open for application? If you're talking about the federal one, the pilot program, and let me explain to you what a pilot program is. So a pilot program basically is when you have the Canadian government is saying, hey, we've seen a need. We want people to have this certain requirements. We want people that meet this certain requirements. And we just need people for a number of years with these requirements. We are not looking for people to have it. We are not sure if this program is going to be a permanent program, or not even permanent, because really they could change any program whenever they want. But we only want it to run for a certain amount of time. So that's really what this, That's really what the pilots are about. And that's why we had other pilots that closed. There was the live-in, the home support worker. There are different pilots that are now closed. Most recently, the last one closed in June, and they were not accepting any applications. So now they've announced, that huge announcement that got everybody talking, yay, this is definitely what we want to, This is what we want to, the route that we think that Canada's open. So everyone felt like this is Canada's caregiver pathway, like the UK has theirs. Everyone was really about it. But what I think wasn't shared a lot is that program is not yet launched. They only were announcing what the plans to launch it either before the end of the year or in early 2025. So we're still waiting to hear on that. So this is why I'm telling people in preparation for that, because you do need a job offer for that. Start networking, get on LinkedIn, start reaching out to, if you do a quick Google search of home, companies basically that would hire caregivers, or just check job boards. You can check Job Bank, and each province has a popular website that they have, like Saskatchewan has SAS Jobs. Check those websites to see any program any jobs, any company that are hiring for caregivers, because that's helpful to know. I keep seeing this company, they're always posting, and they might be willing to give you a chance in terms of that, right? So I want to go forward with the other pathway, because now that people are like, okay, well, if the pathway isn't open, so what can I do now? And I really say the temporary way, which is through the LMIA, which is another way that they do give, what do you call it? They do give people a work permit, or rather LMIA, and then you can apply for a work permit. With that, you need to make sure that you have an employer that's willing to support you with a job offer, willing to support you, and so basically you have to meet the specific eligibility criteria for that job employer. So the employer might have their requirements as well, and it's your duty to make sure you meet those eligibility requirements, and then go ahead and apply, and then do your interview. And if you get a job offer, that has to be an LMIA supported job. And I want to let people know that you should never be asked to pay for your LMIA or for a job. If anyone is saying you need to pay for a job here in Canada, that is illegal. You shouldn't have any consultant take money from you. That's what's happening right now. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing all these, where we're seeing the Canadian government saying there's been abuse of the system. People, unfortunately, ghost consultants and, maybe even other consultants, unfortunately, might be going ahead to sell LMIAs, and they're in partnership with these employers. And that's how these employers are making money off of unsuspecting people who are just really wanting an opportunity to move to Canada. It breaks my heart when I hear about this, because I understand the desire to move here. I get it. I know people really want a better life, and to really be able to find, and to meet the goals that they have for themselves and for their family. But no one should be taking advantage of that. That is just really, really terrible that we see that happening. And that's why I'm always quick to help people understand that sometimes it would just take time for you to move to Canada. And I don't, I'm getting on a soapbox here, but sometimes it will take time for you to move to Canada. But it doesn't, be aware that it's better to do things the legal way. It's better to do things the right way than to, go through the hoops of paying for a job, paying for things that are not illegal, that are illegal rather. And then maybe when it's time for you to apply for your PR or apply for your citizenship, they find out that you did all those things, and they revoke your opportunity to do that. So you don't want anything to get in the way of your end goal, which is most likely citizenship, right? So I'm going to get off my soapbox now, but just wanted to encourage and also put a warning out there that please try make sure that you don't fall for people who try to take advantage of you by making you pay for an LMIA. Okay. And that's why I always talk about the strategy for when you're trying to move to Canada. What is your strategy? I started the live. Someone was asking about the student situation, and I said, if your goal is PR, then absolutely make sure that you are going straight for PR. Don't try to go through the study permit. The study permit route, sure, it seems easy, but there's no easy pathway to move to Canada or even to try to get a study permit now these days, because they know a lot of people are using that to move here for permanent residency. So what is your strategy? Making sure you're up to date with information, making sure that you're talking to an expert, making sure that you're not delaying where necessary. If one of the things I always tell people is do your English test now, like start studying for it. It's valid for 2 years. So even if it's on your mind to go to Canada, start doing your English test so you can get the highest score that you can get and that would limit you. That won't limit you when you're trying to move to Canada in terms of your English. And then even your education, start assessing your education. If there's pathways for you. There are different ways where you can assess it, through places like WES, World Education Services. And that in itself, it can be quite a cumbersome process in gathering your documents and making sure that your school can send all the right documents. So start doing things like that as well. Follow Learn How Canada as well, so we can give you tips on that. And then, and making sure that you're getting accurate information. You can follow the Canadian Immigration on Twitter. They regularly post, information as well. And you can follow us for more information too. But just to go back to the upcoming caregiver program that was provided, what a good thing about, like, I do want to encourage you with that. Aside, it's not all, I know getting a job offer is really hard. It can be challenging. You also need a CLB4 for English. That's all you really need. Like, you just need that CLB4 for your English. You need to assess your education. And then you need to have work experience as well. And then relative work experience, as a caregiver as well. And this pathway plans to give you PR on arrival. They've not told us how, but that's the plan for this pathway as well. So that's one thing that I just want to encourage you guys about. Let's see. I think we have a question here. So yeah, so I am Afino saying, since the pilot's not open, what are the other options? So that was what I started with, which is, I don't know if you were here for the Saskatchewan option. That's the pathway that has recently opened as well. And that's a really, that's a good pathway right now. That's one that you do need a job at this point. And generally a lot of the programs, you do need a job. And it might not say caregiver, like now, Yukon had, I believe they had the Yukon, which is a province that is, it's not a lot of people go there, but they always need workers. But they had a high intake for the critical worker, skilled worker, and critical impact program, and they paused that, right? So they paused that at the moment. So I think a lot of places, there've been a high intake for caregiver. So a lot of places are on pause. So right now, this is more like it feels like a bit of a waiting game right now for a lot of places where people are looking to move as caregivers, which is why I'm here talking about the Saskatchewan one, because that just launched, right? That just launched. It's something that they're looking into. They've launched it. And so that's a pathway that you can definitely explore. So I have some people who are saying, do you want to join the live, or just you kind of hit that because you're interested? So I'm not sure there. Still bringing your questions as well. I think there was another one. How do I assess my qualifications? From Isiua Debayo Abraham. So that's through WES or IQS. They basically will have everyone has their requirements, or they have their requirements, and the point is they're saying, you said that you have equivalent to the Canadian bachelor's degree. So they need to assess to make sure that you, based on your transcripts, based on your diploma, like the completion of your education, and they want to make sure that you meet that. You can be, what's the equivalent education here? So just contact World Education Services. They're like I guess they would say a provider for immigration, for Canadian immigration, and they would do an assessment of your qualifications. Okay. Mufayi was asking about which provinces have caregivers. So you've got, like I mentioned, Saskatchewan has, Ontario does have, but you need a job offer, and it has to be an in-demand skills stream. So, and it would fall under one of the 44101 is the one it falls under for Ontario. And so basically they would need to send you out that invitation as well. So always get in the pool. Like I would say, you never know when the in-demand, like you never know when your occupation will become in demand. So if there's a province that has like a, either if they don't require a job offer or if they do require a job offer, two things, try to get a job offer, one, which is not easy, of course. But if they don't require a job offer, you could also try to at least put in your profile into their system so that if they call for, they can provide you, they can call you and nominate you if once they assess your skills as well. So provinces like Ontario, PEI, they've got their critical worker stream. The Yukon one is paused at the moment. But yeah, and then Saskatchewan just recently launched theirs. Okay, so, and this is a question that we've got, quite often. So if it's an education, so if, and like I said, you're going to assess your education. So if you have a high school degree, that's all you need for Saskatchewan. That's all you need, at least for Saskatchewan program, for generally for the caregiver education, a high school degree completed. Now, if this is a diploma, if this is a post-secondary degree, the NVQ, then it would be beyond a high school degree. So what do you need to get the NVQ? Like if you needed a high school degree to get an NVQ, then West would look at that generally and say, okay, this meets what we would consider a diploma. So like a post-secondary 1-year diploma. So this is equivalent to a 1-year diploma here in Saskatchewan. So that's that assessment of the NVQ is done through West, basically is what I'm saying. Yes, so it's more than a high school is what I'm saying. So in that case, most likely it would. Throw in your questions if you have any other question. So OJ Chris says, can someone who scored less than 5.5 in IELTS migrate to Canada for caregiver's job? So it depends on the program, but 5.5 right now for Saskatchewan, yes. If it's the non-express entry route, they are looking for a CLB 5. If it's the express entry route, because the express entry requires you to have at least a 7, no, you wouldn't be able to go through the express entry route. But you would be able to go if it was like the non-express entry route, right? Because that's just requiring a 5. And then if it's the program that they said is coming out, the pilot, that's just a 4. You just need a 4 for that. So yeah, you would be able to, but we're waiting for that. So this, if the Atlantic program is still on, if you go through school, so there's been a lot of talk about that. There's been some changes to that as well. Some of these programs have paused as well. So we need to look into that further for sure. So we need to look at what the Atlantic program has a school that they were working with exactly. As last I checked, it was still on, but we would need to look into that further if it's still something that you can go through at this point. Any other questions? And it depends also, do you have more questions about, okay, there's also we did say we're going to talk about the second program as well, which is the agriculture program. So the agriculture program is, the reason why we're talking about it because Saskatchewan launched 2 programs, the healthcare talent and as well as the agriculture talent pathway. So some of the occupations, and I'll read it off here, that's needed for the agriculture pathway include, so if you do have anyone who is looking to move here, it includes like people who have experience, as a farmer, people that have experience, as a material handler, things like that. If you've got that experience, with anything related to the agriculture, I guess, field, that would be an opportunity to look for you to actually apply through the agriculture talent pathway as well. Let's see. Any other questions? And I just want you guys to know that it's a lot of this information sometimes is hard to find because, and so what I would recommend is if you see anything online that you are reading through, you can always take a screenshot, and send it to us. We can always provide you much clarity. I think a lot of times people, they see something, they think it's going to be there, and you go back and you try to find it. A lot of times they've changed things, they've altered things, especially when programs change here in Canada. So go ahead and always send us links to things that you're seeing, like, oh, I heard about this program. Can you give us more information about this program? Go ahead and send it to us. And and then we can also, I can't tell you how many people send me a program that is completely fake. It's a fake website, fake information that they're using to lure unsuspecting people to try to get money from them. So feel free to send us those kind of things if you have more questions about it, right? So, yeah. So we have about 10 more minutes for the live. And this is a chance for you to ask more questions that you might have, or invite your friends also, just to, if they want to hear the rest of the live, if they want to ask questions that they might be interested in knowing more about in their journey to move to Canada. Do we have some? I just clicked if somebody wanted to go live with me, but I think that was a mistake. They didn't accept. And sometimes you don't even know if you have, everyone's like, oh, I want to come to the caregiver route. I want to come to the caregiver route. Sometimes you don't realize that what you're doing right now, there might be an opportunity to move to Canada with whatever you're doing right now, your occupation. People don't realize that. That's why I always tell people it's so important for you to go ahead and get, basically to get an assessment done by an immigration consultant. So if you do your assessment, then you have an opportunity to know, oh, this is definitely, this is a way I could move to Canada, and I didn't realize it. I thought, and sometimes, especially if you're married, you or your spouse or your partner, you might not know who should be the principal applicant. You're assuming that, oh, because I have maybe a bachelor's degree and a master's, and I'm a director at this company. Meanwhile, it could be, your spouse who is, who has manual labor experience, and material handlers, as they call it, as well, who might have experience doing labor in food processing plants, who might have experience, those roles, an electrician, a plumber. You don't realize that there could be a skill set that you have or a certification that you have, and you only need maybe 1 year of experience. Sometimes, like for the express entry, you only need a year of experience, well, it depends on the occupation might have its own requirements, but generally to meet the eligibility, it's like a year of experience in the last 10 years, full-time work experience. And let's say you did that one job for a year, and you're just discarding it as it probably, that job is not the kind of job that they wanted for Canada. You don't know what the labor market is in Canada. A lot of times there are jobs where, it's so hard to fill for these employers that the government has said, you know what, this is important to the move to the progression of the Canadian economy. So we do want professionals who are abroad who have the skill set to move to Canada. And it's not sometimes it's not popular occupations. It's occupations that, you might have that skill set and you just did it for a year and you don't realize it. So book a consultation. Let us do an assessment for you. Let us make sure that we can exhaust all the different scenarios of your background, which includes your education, your partner's education, your work experience, your partner's work experience, and that will give us a full understanding as well. Nadine Manuela is asking for a refresher. So we will save this live so you can watch the live again. But in general, for a summary, and I guess as we end, we can summarize in general, the pilot program is currently not open for the federal program. However, the requirements require you to have a CLB4, a job offer, work experience, and a high school degree. That's currently not open, but we're hoping that it will open soon before the end of the year or by early next year. And then they're promising that you also get PR on arrival. So that's the pathway that we've talked, like they announced back in June. However, what spurred us to go ahead and speak about this, decide to do a refresher, is when Saskatchewan recently launched the Healthcare Talent Pathway, which includes 2 NOC codes that could fall under a caregiver. So if you're not a caregiver, there are also other healthcare professions. And what we'll do is that we're gonna put in our bio the link to the YouTube video. We actually did a webinar on the healthcare pathway a couple of months ago. So you can actually watch the YouTube video where I give more extensive information about the healthcare pathway to move to Canada via permanent residency or temporary residency. But back to the summary, Inandi Emanuela. So I was just talking about the Saskatchewan one, and the Saskatchewan is non-express entry and express entry route. Non-express entry route has different requirements, including you to have CLB5 in your English score, 6 months of work experience if you're in here in Saskatchewan, and then if you are not in Saskatchewan, it would be 1 year of work experience in the last 5 years. And then also the intent to live in Saskatchewan, and education has to meet the NOC requirements, which is whatever your education is, you need to meet that requirement. Whatever your NOC, rather, your occupation is, you need to meet the education requirements. And for you to know that, you just need to put the National Occupation Classification 2021, put your profession, and you should get your NOC code there. You just Google it. If you can't find it, you could always book a consultation and we can assist with that. And then the express entry route is different. You have to have an express entry profile. You need to have it, and both of these programs, routes, you need a job offer as well. That's another thing. So this is through Saskatchewan I'm talking about. You also need a job. You also need CLB7 because that's what's required for the express entry to have a CLB7. And then you also need 1 year of work experience in the last 5 years. And also the same thing as, you have to be eligible to your education. You have to be intending to live and work in Saskatchewan. So you can't get a job in BC and think you can apply for the Saskatchewan program. And you can't be a refugee claimant. So you can't be a claiming refugee here when you do that. So that's a bit of a summary Inandi Emanuela. But I said we'll link the YouTube video that we did go ahead and speak about, and you'll be able to have that information to more deep information about when you about working here in choosing to explore the caregiver route. And then also it talks about not just caregiver, it talks about all healthcare professionals. Actually, that webinar that we did. Mofe Yisayo is asking about age. I think with age just has to do with your express entry point. In terms of that, there's no, like, for this program, they didn't say you can't be 60, you can't be a certain age. There's no requirements about that. When age comes into play is when you're trying to get your express entry points, right? So it's that moment where you're like, I need more points, or I'm looking like I need to meet the requirement, or cutoff score. And, by the time you're, like as you're getting older, the points do change, right? The points do change, and then you're not able to make more points as you needed, right? So there is a different criteria, like the comprehensive ranking system has different age. It gives you points based on your age, basically. That's what that is. So just about less than 5 minutes left here for the live. If you have any other questions, feel free to just put it on here, or DM us, or email us, or book a consultation for an in-depth analysis about your background, so we can assess that for you as well. We do have, we've answered that question. If you're just coming in, I'll just introduce myself again. I'm Lola. I'm an immigration consultant with Learn How Immigration Consulting, and I'm licensed to practice as an immigration consultant. I always give people that warning of beware of what we call ghost consultants. Generally, we don't call ourselves agents. I know people will say, oh, the agent. I mean, I see why people might go that route. It's just a verbiage, but if someone's saying I'm an agent, we don't refer ourselves to like agents. You need to assess to make sure that they are licensed to apply to assist you and charge you and take you know, and give you require you pay immigration consulting fees, they have to be licensed to do that, specifically to represent. We represent clients for their immigration consulting needs. Basically, that's what we do. Trying to see if we missed any questions. If you didn't hear, there were 2 codes that I put for the caregiver, and I'm going to put them again. This is for the NOC code. I'm putting them again. If you want to assess and to see, oh, do I have the work experience and the education even to be considered a caregiver here in Canada? Those are the 2 codes. You should, if you Google that and put National Occupation Classification, it'll give you all the information that you might need to assess if you have the NOC code requirement. So we're just rounding up the live here. Thank you so much to everyone that's joined us. This is not the end. You know, we're always here to educate and to assist and to guide and to, you know, for you to learn how to move to Canada. And so please reach out if you have any questions, and let's help you in this journey. We always say that, you know, your journey starts here, and it really is a journey to move to Canada. You know, I'm sure there's some of you here who thought about moving to Canada some years ago, and you didn't know where to start and you didn't take action. So I think I would leave you that word, that it's a journey. If it feels overwhelming in the beginning, that's okay. Take one step at a time. Try one thing at a time. Do your English. Assess your education. Talk to employers about potential opportunities that you feel like you might meet. You know, do those things that are just step by step by step. If you are someone who are like, you know, I don't even know where to start, book a consultation as well. Book a consultation, talk to an expert, you know, choose someone who you know is licensed. Don't pick people who are not licensed, because they're not bound by any legislation or any regulations from Canada. They can, you know, you can't hold them accountable. That's what I'm saying. From people like me and my colleagues, you can hold us accountable. If you feel like I was not properly represented, you can report me to the college, and the college, I have to answer to the college. So there's that accountability. I could lose a license. I could lose a license if I do not represent you well. So make sure that you choose someone who is accountable, you can hold accountable, and is not gonna, who has a license to be able to represent you. That's the end of what I would be saying. I know people who decide that they want to do it on their own. Absolutely welcome to do that as well. But just make sure you have the right information when you're in this journey, because it can be a very expensive journey, right? So make sure you have the right information. So that's it from me. I'm Lola, your immigration consulting, and I give you all the tips on how you can move to Canada. Thank you for joining me. It's a pleasure meeting you all, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.